Hello, everyone, and welcome into Senior Living Live. My name is Melissa. We hope you are having a fantastic day today. Well, we have an informative webinar to share with you today about grief. We've all experienced this emotion at some point in our lives, and our guest speaker today, Ann Keeton, will help us find ways to manage grief, and she will describe the types of grief people experience and why. She will be available at the end of the presentation to answer any questions that you might have, or if you just want to share your experience with her, you can do that as well. All audio and video lines will be muted throughout the presentation, throughout the entire webinar, we should say. But you can join the conversation by using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and you can, of course, remain anonymous. With that, I will pass the microphone over to our guest speaker, Ann Keeton, and we hope you are having a fantastic day today too.
Thank you, Melissa. Indeed, I am. I'm very, very happy to be here with y'all and to discuss this very important topic. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to share my screen. Welcome, everybody. I am, as Melissa said, Ann Keeton. I am a grief recovery specialist, a certified life coach, and a grief recovery specialist. I've been doing the grief recovery work since 2011 full time. And it all began when I had a client who was in her mid 40s, and she'd lost her mom when she was about 13. She was a coaching client. And we started coaching around the loss of her mother, because despite it having been many years, there was still a big, huge hole in her heart where her mom had been. And we began coaching about that. And it was the most exquisite work I'd had the privilege to do. And so I knew I wanted to pursue more work with grief, but I didn't know anything about grief and thought probably I should if I was going to specialize it. And I found the Grief Recovery Institute and went and got certified by them in 2011. So when I went for my grief recovery training, I came home and I went there for professional reasons, right? It wasn't that a particular personal loss had taken me there. And when it was time for me to do the training, of course, I had to do the work myself. And I thought like, ooh, this could help everybody else in America, but this probably can't help me. I don't think anything could help me, but I paid a bunch of money to be there. And so I stuck with it and did the work and reaped enormous benefits and became so excited about it and became a huge advocate when I came home. And so, however, when I came back from my training, I came back with this attitude that I was like, oh, I'm so clever and I'm so smart. Now that I know what to do with grief, I won't have to have any. I found a backdoor way around grief. Lucky me. Well, like this slide says, in 8 weeks, so I came back in July, on December 3rd, my best friend, Ted, who's pictured on the slide to the right, he died of esophageal cancer. January 16th, I got laid off from my job. That's the picture of me and the two other women, a job that I really, really enjoyed. It was a bit of a dead end job, but I did enjoy it. And so I was stunned to be laid off. Like I knew people were going to get laid off, but I didn't think it was going to happen to me. And then my dog died 8 weeks later. So from Saturday to Saturday, 8 weeks, I had these three major losses. And I realized so much for my plan of not having any grief, just because I knew what to do with it. So what we know about grief is that we're all going to have it. We've all had it already. We're probably having it now. Certainly with COVID, we're having it now, and we're going to keep having it. So it's really imperative that we start to get some accurate information about grief. So I'm going to share some of that with you today. And I thank y'all for being here. Let's start with what is grief. So our primary definition of grief is conflicting feelings about the end of or change in a familiar pattern of behavior, which is probably a little bit surprising because it doesn't say anything about death or divorce or sadness or any particular emotion. And again, conflicting feelings about the end of or change in a familiar pattern or behavior, right? So that means that negative things can cause grief, right? So when my friend Ted was sick with cancer, you know, I had a lot of fear, I had a lot of worry, I had a lot of pressure in terms of being available for him and doing my job and being available for my kids. I also felt optimistic, I felt hopeful, I felt committed. And so there were tons of conflicting feelings, you know, and I'd be feeling good. And then all of a sudden I feel really scared. And then I'd be worried that I felt scared and I was feeling pessimistic. And oh my God, was I like harming him? Was I going to, You hear about the law of attraction. Was I going to call forth his death because I was having all these negative thoughts that were just natural and normal and unavoidable? But I had all these conflicting feelings. And so we need to know that we're going to have conflicting feelings, and that those conflicting feelings are not an indictment of us or what we're doing or not doing. They're also not a crystal ball about what's coming or not coming, right? They're just conflicting feelings. And we need to know they're coming, and we need to not get thrown off by them, right? Another definition of grief: reaching for someone or something that has always been there, only to find that when we need them one more time, they're not there, right? So it could be a person, it could be a pet, it could be a house, it could be a car, it could be a piece of artwork, it could be a tree in the yard that you used to, love looking at. Now you've moved away from that home. Like, any of those things that have sort of always been there for us and we've taken some comfort in and connection, even things that we don't necessarily like. We might have moved out of a home that we really didn't like, and yet it'd been there for us and we were used to it, and so now all of a sudden it's not there when we need it. And that too is grief. Okay, a little more about grief. Grief is emotional and not intellectual, right? So we have an intellectual operating system, we have an emotional operating system, we have a physical operating system, we have a spiritual operating system, right? And all of these operating systems are valid and necessary in the functioning of our lives. Grief is the emotional response to loss. But since culturally we don't do well with grief and we don't want to tend to the emotional, we go to the intellectual, right? So here's a picture of a light bulb on this slide. Here's an example from my life. And this is a small example, but I think hopefully you can easily grab a hold of. So I was married for 10 years and my then husband and I split up. And after he moved out, I had to change a light bulb. Okay, so I know how to change a light bulb. I changed many light bulbs in my lifetime. I was intellectually capable of it. I was physically capable of it. Like, I knew what to do. And granted, it was a little bit more complicated. It was the light bulb that was like up in the ceiling of the back hallway. I was gonna have to get on a chair and I was gonna have to pull the little glass bulb down and then put the light bulb in and screw it back on there. So it was more complicated than a light bulb in just a lamp, but still I knew how to do it and I had done it before. And yet, in that moment, I desperately did not want to change that light bulb. And I didn't want to change that light bulb because it wasn't just about the light bulb itself. It was about that light bulb, but it was about all the other light bulbs I was going to have to change. And it was about my failed marriage and my wounded ego and my children's broken hearts and how I was going to maneuver all of these tasks that I had to do, both logistically, parenting, financially, emotionally. Like, there was so much attached to that light bulb in that moment. And that was an emotional response to that light bulb. And it was my grief about my marriage coming out at that light bulb. And now if you tried to approach me with that intellectually, you would say, like, well, Anne, like, this is what you're going to do. You're just going to get up on a chair and you're going to, these are the steps. You're going to lay out an intellectual answer for me. But that wasn't an intellectual experience. That was an emotional experience. And that's what grief is. So you can probably think of examples in your life where all of a sudden you're, quote unquote, overreacting to something that's going on, right? Like losing your spouse, and now all of a sudden you have to be the one that takes out the trash. Again, you know how to do it physically, you know how to do it mentally, but emotionally, it can be radically different experience, okay? So that's important information about grief, and I want you to remember that. Likewise, grief is the most universal and profound of all human experiences, right? It's the experience that will take us to our knees. So you need to know, again, that we're all having it, and that this emotional response is natural and normal and unavoidable, and often includes a lot of fear, because fear is the primary response to loss, right? The world as we knew it is no longer what it was. right? And so there's fear about the absence of what's just changed. Again, whether it's a person, whether it's a home, whether it's a car, like I'm not driving anymore. Oh my God, my independence. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my life? How am I going to get things done? How am I going to get what I want? Who am I going to ask? I don't want to have to ask, right? Like there's all this stuff that gets attached to it, natural and normal, right? So I want you to know that that's what's going on and that you're not inadequate and you're not defective. This is grief, okay? Um, why is grief so hard? Well, number one, especially in our culture, we've been taught to acquire things. We've been taught to go after and to succeed and accumulate and acquire, whether it's things or it's experiences or accolades or money, like all kinds of things we've been taught to acquire. And we're not taught how to lose things. We're just not taught that. And we're going to talk about the myths of grief shortly. So I'll go into that momentarily. Okay. Types of loss. All right. There are over 40 different types of loss. Okay. They all cause grief. They all cause conflicting feelings. They're all that emotional response to loss. So of course, death and divorce are things that people would normally think of, right? But moving into a nursing home or a retirement home, this list is mostly geared towards seniors, having major physical problems, your spouse having physical problems, lack of dreams or purpose, forced retirement, unable to drive, normal retirement, your spouse being confined to a retirement home, a nursing home, family member change of health, which can include sex, by the way, right? So as we get older, our health changes, our bodies change, the way they responded to things can change. And that includes our sexual responses too. And so for you to know that if that's happening to you and or it's happening to your partner, that's a legitimate source of grief, and don't try and give yourself like these intellectual answers like, oh, well, it doesn't matter, or these are the reasons, yes, those are the reasons, and it still can matter. Right? Both of those things can be true at one time. Change in a financial status, death of a close friend, a sense of not being needed, decreased contact with family and friends, or change in social, recreation, religious activity. So this isn't all of them, but this is a piece of them. And there's a scale called, I want to read this so I make sure I get it right, the social readjustment rating scale that identifies these major life events. And they actually awarded a score. So you can see that there are numbers here, right? That go along with these. And that speaks to how stressful that event is for you. So what we're hoping for is that under 150, that we keep our scores to under 150. That puts us at low risk, right? Well, just losing a spouse puts us at 100. Moving into a nursing home or retirement home puts us at 70, plus, major physical problems. That gets us to 53. So these things can accumulate in a hurry, right? And again, we need to know that they're loss. In addition to these more specific losses, there are intangible losses, right? So the loss of a feeling of safety, a loss of trust, a loss of faith. Maybe something catastrophic happens in your whole life. You've been a person of faith, and all of a sudden now your child has died, or your spouse has died, or there's been some catastrophic event, and then you lose your faith. Right? Now your faith has been the thing that's gotten you through crises in the past, and now all of a sudden you don't have that either. Okay, so that too is a loss. Loss of youth, loss of independence. These are all legitimate sources of grief, and I want you to know that, so that you can appropriately address these losses, identify them, and then address them. Okay, moving is like the most overlooked form of grief. And think about it, it sort of like perfectly encapsulates our definition of grief as conflicting feelings about a change in a familiar pattern of behavior. Because when we move, every pattern of behavior changes, right? Like where we drive, how we get to the grocery store, what the coffee shop is, what the dry cleaners are, who our neighbors are, you know, the trees in our yard, the places we put all of our stuff, you know. And again, it doesn't even mean that we necessarily love everything about the home that we were in. But when we move, everything changes, right? And if we go back to that score, like that, you know, moving into a retirement home, 70 points on the stressful score. Like, it doesn't mean don't do it, doesn't mean that you should stay where you are, but it does mean that it's a big life change and that it's normal that you're going to feel the impact of that, right? And I don't want you to minimize that. Um, so we do have relationships with our homes, you know, it's not just a thing, right? My mom had the family house I grew up in for like 43 years, and she sold it after not living there for 7 years. Nobody had lived there for 7 years. And yet, when it was time to say goodbye to this home, like, it was very emotional for me. I did my own grief recovery work on it, and that made a huge difference. And I'm glad I did it. And I ended up feeling very peaceful about it. But lots and lots of tears, right? Because this had been the safe haven. This was the place, it's the only home I'd ever known. I got there at the age 4. I didn't remember the homes before that. You know, it might be the home that you raised your children in, right? It might be the dream home that you've been waiting for your whole life, and now you're in it, and now it's time to go, you know? Um, so moving's a big deal. And again, don't underestimate that. Of course, right now in this climate, COVID, right? Like, familiar patterns of behavior have changed. Like, is it safe to go to the grocery store? Probably not a question we ever had to ask ourselves before. You know, health worries. Can I see my family? Can I not see my family? Do I do this? Do I not do that? You know, financial worries. Is this impacting, you know, my ability to go to work? Is this impacting the, you know, the markets, like what's happening to my retirement funds? You know, medication, stuff like that. Watching family or friends dying or suffering, you know, or being absent or being present. All of a sudden I can't see my family, or all of a sudden I'm stuck in my house with my family 24/7, you know, and as much as I love them, I didn't really want to be with them all the time like that, you know, kids, grandkids not being able to go to school. So again, lots of conflicting feelings. And if you think about that definition of reaching for something that has always been there, like this just quote unquote normal life that we could anticipate and expect, and then all of a sudden we can't like totally hold on to that the way we used to, right? So lots of conflicting feelings about COVID, including there may be some positive things too, like with for me personally, my kids ended up back at home. Well, in some ways that was really, really cool to be with them again, and it was more expensive, and it was messier, you know, and there was an opportunity there. Another one, I've done some Zoom memory calls for people who have lost a family member, you know, that can't have a traditional memorial service. And so there's a lot of sadness and grief and even anger about not being able to have a typical service and not being able to bring all your family members together. And so, of course, a lot of negative there and conflicting feelings with these Zoom calls. All of a sudden, there's an opportunity to bring people, family members together that might not have otherwise been together, right? So even if I would have had a traditional service, maybe my aunt and uncle from California never could have traveled. And yet here they can be on the Zoom call together, you know, so it's not necessarily that all those conflicting feelings are bad. You know, there could be positive things there too. And it is a change in all the familiar patterns of behavior. And so it's a substantial, enormously substantial life experience with a lot of grief. Okay, common responses to loss. And you may be noticing this, right? Think about stuff going on in your life. I found out last night that a family member has COVID. So here we got somebody sleeping. Common response to loss, disrupted sleep. Guess who was awake at 3 a.m.? I was awake at 3 a.m. from 3 to 5, feeling, you know, like I got some dark circles under my eyes today. Disrupted eating. We're eating too much. We're not eating enough. We're eating a lot of what we shouldn't and not any of what we should. Like back to sleep. We're sleeping during the day instead of sleeping at night. You know, we're not sleeping at all. We're sleeping too much. Diminished concentration and focus. So when the heart is broken, the head doesn't work right? So all of a sudden, it can be very hard to remember what the heck you're doing, right? You walk to the kitchen to get a pen, and all of a sudden you're there and you're like, oh my gosh, what's that? I don't even know why I'm here, right? We have diminished concentration and focus. After my best friend Ted died, I locked my keys in the car, 2 stops in a row, one back to back, within 30 minutes of each other. And what I can tell you is that maybe at the first stop, I wasn't being that mindful. At the second stop, I was absolutely, positively trying to not lock my keys in the car. And I still did it because I had diminished concentration and focus. My head is stuck on what's just happened. My head is stuck on his death. And so that means it's not paying attention to what's right in front of it, right? So we're more likely to have accidents. We're more likely to have illnesses. We need to know that we're compromised so that we can slow things down. Don't be getting up on ladders. This is not the time to clean the gutters. This is not the time to walk down the stairs at night, with the lights out. It's easy to not pay the bills. Another thing I did after Ted died was walk into men's bathrooms twice. Twice I did that. The last day, one of the last days he was in the hospital, and I walked in there, and I mean, I'm looking at the signs. I'm like, men, women, and I still can't do it right. So one of the last days he's in the hospital, I walk into the bathroom and I think, I don't remember it looking like this. And I went, oh my God, did I walk in the men's room? Yes, I had. And then 10 weeks later, after he died, I did the exact same thing. I'm at a restaurant. I won't say what. It's time to go to the bathroom. Do the same thing. Men, women, make a choice, walk in there. And I think this bathroom is a dump. They ought to know that women care about the way the bathroom looks. They should redo this. And I go, oh, did I do it again? Yes, I had done it again. I walked into the men's room. So we have diminished concentration and focus. That's a common response to loss. We need to know that we're compromised. And then here's a picture of a man on roller skates on a roller coaster track. And I've got this because grief uses a ton of emotional energy, and we can feel like we're just on that roller coaster. We're okay. And then all of a sudden, we're not okay. And then we're kind of okay. And then we're not okay. Sitting at the computer, nothing happening. And all of a sudden, we get this big zing in our heart, right? And all of a sudden, there are tears or there's anger. I have anger a lot. Doesn't mean, when we talked about those conflicting feelings, doesn't point to any specific feeling, right? It could be sadness. It could be anger, right? My grief often shows up as anger first. Okay, so what we know about grief. All right, grief is like, and what we've learned about it, this is the myth that I mentioned earlier. Grief is like an emotionally flat tire. Okay, we get stuck on the side of the road in life, right? Like emotionally, we get stuck, and we get stuck not because we're inadequate, and not because we're defective, and not because we're pathological. We get stuck because we have an emotionally flat tire, right? And what we've learned about grief are a whole bunch of myths that are not accurate, they're not healthy, and they're not helpful, right? So probably the first one everybody's familiar with, give it time, right? Give it time. So imagine you're sitting on the side of the road with a flat tire, an actual flat tire, and you said, well, I'm just going to give it time. I'm just going to give it time. And then stay busy. I'm going to stay busy. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to, answer text messages and emails on my smartphone. I'm going to clean out the glove compartment. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to return some phone calls. Like, great. So you're getting that stuff done on the side of the road. But guess what? Your tire's not any less flat, right? Or don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. Look on the bright side. Focus on the gratitude and what's good. Like, oh my God, it could be so much worse. I could have 3 flat tires. Which is true. You could have 3 flat tires. It could be worse. Most times it could be worse. However, that's an intellectual truth. The emotional truth is that though it could be worse, I'm sitting here with 1 flat tire, right? And staying in the car with a good attitude, giving it time and staying busy and not doing anything about it does not fix my tire, right? We also have been taught to grieve alone. Like what are that, laugh and the whole world laughs with you, cry and you cry alone. One of the things I, heard growing up was, you want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about. So we've been taught this in various ways, like, keep it to ourselves. Don't ask for help, and that doesn't help. That doesn't help our tire get flat, right? Like, I mean, get fixed. Like, we have to ask for help. How do I fix this emotionally flat tire? That's what I do. If you had a physically flat tire, either you would have asked for help in learning how to do it yourself. You'd call somebody in, you'd call AAA, you call a family member. Fortunately, with grief, we got to change the tire ourselves, but there is a skill set to that. We have to learn how to do that. And we can learn how to do it. That's what I teach people to do. And it can get done. Other myths replace the loss. Like, we'll just get, your dog died, and people say, oh, well, when are you going to get another dog? Okay, as if they're, interchangeable. Doesn't mean you shouldn't get a new dog, but the fact that you get a new dog doesn't fix the wound or the broken heart of the dog that just died, right? Or there's a divorce, or there's a breakup. Oh, well, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Again, intellectually true, there are plenty of fish in the sea. But going out and getting a new fish, aka boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, doesn't tend to the wound of the one that just vanished, right? Even if we were the one that left them. Now, again, it doesn't mean we shouldn't get another dog or another partner or another home or another car or whatever it is. But we need to know that just getting another one of those things still doesn't heal the heart, right? And then be strong. Be strong for others. We hear that a lot. Oh, we lose somebody, and we got to be strong for mom. We got to be strong for dad. We got to be strong for the kids. We can't really be strong for somebody else, and it's okay. Just because we're sad doesn't mean that we're not strong. Which takes me back to the kind of underlying myth that underlies everything, which is like, don't feel bad, right? Like, well, don't feel bad. You can get another dog, or even if people don't say don't feel bad, it's often implied. Like, we'll say, going back to the intellectual instead of the emotional, oh, at least that person's not suffering anymore. Maybe intellectually true. When Ted died, there was some genuine relief in me that he was not here anymore and that he was not suffering. But guess what? I was suffering. So the fact that he wasn't suffering, while very, very good for me, to think about him in that way, my heart was absolutely broken, And so I did feel bad. And when we feel bad, we don't really want to hear other people tell us that we shouldn't feel bad. It feels bad to be told you shouldn't feel bad when you do feel bad. It is appropriate to feel bad when bad and sad things happen, right? So we need to know what these myths are, and then we need to, and a lot of times we'll hear other people say them. You may overhear them in the restaurant where you're getting something to drink these days to go, because we're not dining in. You'll hear other people say them to people, and you'll hear people say some of the stuff to you. But mostly, I think where we hear it is because we've heard it so much in our life. Then we continue to say it in between our own ears, And so I'm telling myself, oh, I shouldn't feel bad about that. I should be grateful for this. I should look on the bright side. Again, it's okay to be grateful for the good things, but it's also okay and imperative that we actually acknowledge the sadness, the loss, the part that feels bad. Right? And all of that can be true at the exact same time. It's not either or in most cases. Here's another slide about because I don't know if I don't know if I had that on the first slide. So on these losses that we experience, we have the score. We're going for less than 150. 150 to 299 is medium risk. 300 plus puts us at high risk, right? So this confirms, again, that these things affect us emotionally, mentally, physically. We need to take it seriously. We need to plan for it, because guess what? It's coming. One of the spouses is going to die first, right? If life goes according to plan, our parents are going to die before we do. And so, since we know it's coming and we can look at these scores and know that they have a dramatic impact on our life, it's imperative that we plan for it. People plan for retirement. People plan to go to college. People plan for their career. So we need to plan for the emotionally, the emotional crises and the emotional flat tires that are going to come up in our life, right? That helps us be more resilient by planning for it. and not just waiting for it, kind of crossing our fingers, hoping it's not going to happen when we know things are going to happen. All right. So that's grief. In a nutshell, I could talk about this like forever. Certainly happy to answer any questions about that. And I want to talk a little bit about recovery because that's what I do is I teach people how to change those flat tires, right? So it's really important that we know about grief, and then it's important that we know that we can do something about it. We're not just at the mercy of time, hoping that we're going to feel better. Back to time. Time doesn't heal. It's what we do or don't do within the context of time that heals, right? So if I break my wrist and I go to the hospital and I get it set in a cast, then it's that cast in the context of time that gives my wrist the ability to heal. But if I don't get it, if I don't get the cast, then guess what? My wrist is kind of going to reconfigure itself, but it's not going to have the same functionality. It's not going to have the same mobility. It's not going to have the same comfort. And so having a distorted wrist that doesn't operate, fully is not the same as recovery, right? So what time does, and this is a question I asked the people who run the Grief Recovery Institute after I started doing the work. I said, well, does time really not heal? Because it kind of seems like it does. And Russell, who's the author of the book, one of the authors of the book, he said, no, what time does is it gets us used to the new, painful, distorted reality, right? We get used to that. It maybe goes on the back burner instead of the front burner. But getting used to a new, painful, distorted reality is very, very different than healing and recovering. Okay. So these things are going to happen, not because there's anything wrong with us, but because this is what life throws our way. We need to anticipate it, and then we need to do the work to recover. Okay. So, so there are only three options with grief. Implode, if you can see this over here. With grief, we implode, we explode, or we recover. That's it. Implode, explode, or recover. There's not like some good fourth option, which is like, oh, I'll just pretend it didn't happen. It's going to affect us. And so we need to choose what we want to do. And unresolved grief diminishes our capacity for happiness. Unresolved grief diminishes the capacity for happiness. So we might as well choose recovery. And it's a choice. It's very, very much a choice. And it's a critical choice. And I'll tell you this too, to be completely straight up. It's a choice because it takes willingness, it takes effort, it takes hard work, it takes commitment. Because when I'm asking you to do grief recovery work, I'm asking you to do hard emotional work at the time in your life when you probably have the very, lowest amount of emotional reserves. You've just had a crisis, right? You've just had a devastating loss. Lots of people don't come see me in anticipation of what's coming, though that would be really helpful. It's very helpful to learn how to put out a fire before the fire, right? And lots of people don't, and they come to me after the crisis, and it's never too early and it's never too late. So don't not come just because it's after the crisis. But we have low reserves at that point. And so it's a tall order, and it's a choice and it's a commitment. And we make that choice because we're still here and we matter. And the quality of life that we have matters. And even if we don't care about the quality of our life, the quality of our life affects all the people that we're in relationship with, right? So if we're not willing to recover for ourselves, then let's do that recovery work for the people that we care about, for our kids, for our partners, for our friends, for our colleagues, for our pets, whatever it is that will help us stay connected to meaning and purpose in our life that has changed. All right. So let's choose recovery. What is recovery, right? So recovery means feeling better. Recovery means claiming your circumstances instead of having them claim you and your happiness. Recovery means finding new meaning for living. It means being able to enjoy fond memories without those memories just causing a cascade of pain. Now, recovery doesn't mean that we always feel good all the time and it's nothing but a smile, right? No, recovery gives us the opportunity to restore the full range of emotions, right? Which means sometimes we're going to be really sad, we're going to be really mad, we're going to be really lonely, all that stuff. And that we can be happy, that we can be joyful, that we can laugh, that we can remember those fond memories without it causing nothing but pain. Okay. Um, and I said this just a minute ago, but I really want to emphasize it. Recovery is finding new meaning for purpose and living, right? So, if I was, a lot of times, somebody's caretaking a family member, right? And all of a sudden, then that family member's no longer there. And so and really that was true for me with Ted, right? Like all of a sudden I have the absence of him as my friend, but then I have the absence of like what I've just spent the last, year and a half with my life doing is tending to him and taking care of him. And that was just like this whole integral part of my life. And I remember after he died, I was like, I feel lost and lost, like lost without him, but like also lost, like, oh my God, what do I do with my time? What do I do with my time? So we have to find new meaning for, purpose and for living, right? Like in COVID, right? We're stuck in our house. How do we find new meaning and purpose in that situation? Not like when it's all over. How do we find new meaning and purpose in whatever situation we find ourselves in? Like I started doing touch-up paint around my house and I kept saying, well, it's not worse. I don't know if it's a lot better, but it's not worse, right? That was very helpful at the beginning of COVID. It really gave me something to hold on to. I started trying to do 10,000 steps a day. That gave me something to hold on to. And sometimes it's a little bit like the rungs on the monkey bars, like I can hold on to this one for now. Like I can't find that meaning and purpose that's way out, but I can find this little piece right in front of me right now. I had a client who she lives alone, senior by herself. Thanksgiving was miserable, absolutely miserable. And so she decided for Christmas that she was going to proactively plan for that. And she decided that she was going to cook a meal for a friend whose spouse was dealing with cancer. And she said it was great because then all those smells of the holiday, wafting, however you say that word, through her home. And like, what a good feeling that was for her. She set up Zoom calls. She did like a socially distant cookie swap, with in the trunks of the car. She sent out cards. Like she proactively planned ways to find meaning and purpose in this new, very shut down world where she was completely by herself, right? So it can be big things, it can be little things, but like it requires effort and it requires willingness on our part. So recovery requires action. We have to get out of the car. We have to change those flat tires, right? We may not want to. We may not like it. We may not even believe that we can. And yet, what we need to do is get out of the car and take that action. Grief recovery is an exquisite way to do it. It's the only evidence-based support program for grief. So obviously, I'm a big fan of it. I've seen it change, countless lives. I mean, it really, really works. And I'll tell you honestly, I don't even know why it works. It doesn't seem like it should work, but it works. And if you're not going to do grief recovery, do something, right? Maybe it's something through your church. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's art therapy. Maybe it's music therapy. Maybe it's gardening. Like maybe it's exercise. It requires action. Okay. So I want to invite you towards that action and participating, become a full participant in your recovery. I've got a picture of an older woman in a convertible here. And so one of my first clients, this is a great recovery story, and I'm going to take a sip of water. She came to me, 74, loses her husband. She met him when she was 15. He'd been, her whole life. And she was driving to me from far outside the city, and she came the first day and she's like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. That's too scary. He did all the driving. I said, okay, we're going to find you another route. So we found her another route. She came to see me faithfully, did lots of grief recovery work. And what is so exciting is that this woman who couldn't drive, from one side of the city to the other, when she first started to see me, like doing all this grief recovery work, she got her life back. And now she can jump in the car and she can drive to Florida. She can drive to a condo in Florida. She can drive to Louisiana to see her grandkids perform at a music concert. And like, she discovered, and I'm not minimizing the pain, she would have taken her husband back in a heartbeat. Absolutely would have taken him back in a heartbeat. And it wasn't an option, right? She didn't get him back. And so in his absence, she had this exquisite opportunity to discover who she was and what she was capable of and the things that she could do that she didn't know that she could do. And she got so confident. She traveled, she drove, she went to Africa, which she said she was never going to go back, but she was still really, really pleased. It was like a personal best that she had gone. It was a really hard trip, physically hard. It was emotionally hard. She was on a mission trip. It was just like, it was painful. And still, there was such satisfaction in her discovering that she was able to do that. And at one point she said, she said, when I was young, and I could take the local bus to where I needed to go, the bus driver called me Bubbles because I was just this bubbly, happy, confident kid. And she said, I feel like I got Bubbles back, and again, not minimizing the loss of her spouse, her beloved husband of so many years. And she had this opportunity to discover more about herself. And since she was stuck here, which she was, she might as well have that experience of herself, right? So we want to participate. We want to participate fully in our lives. And unresolved grief keeps us from participating fully in all of the circumstances that life throws our way. And so I want to invite you to know more in this talk about what grief is, what recovery is. This is a great quote, that recovery is letting that relationship, again, whether it's a person, a house, a pet, a friend, a home, a city, letting that legacy of love remain a legacy of love instead of becoming a monument of misery. Because if we don't get in and deal with the pain, we get in relationship with the pain instead of staying in relationship with the person, the home, the pet, the spouse, the child, the fill in the blanks, the coworkers, the job itself. We get in relationship with that pain and we lose the relationship to, that we had, that we've been grieving the loss of, and then all of a sudden we've lost it even more, right? So I want to invite you to participate in your recovery. I'm not saying it's easy, right? Grief is not easy. Grief will take us to our knees, but it can be done and you can do it. You've done other difficult things in life. You can do this too. And it can be good. It will be different. Without a doubt, it will be different and it can still be good. So with that, Melissa, I think I will, and I'll stick this up. You certainly can reach out to me. I'm happy to share any information I've got, answer any questions, set up a complimentary call with anybody. Maybe this can get sent out. And okay, with the big exhale, I think we're done with that.
So much great information on a subject that I think in our society, it's very much, sure, you've had this loss, but why are you still grieving it 4 months later? Why are you still grieving? People,
yeah,
it's almost like we should have we have a time frame to grieve, and then we're supposed to move on.
And then
so
boom.
It is so refreshing to hear that we're all normal. We all grieve on our own time, and that is okay.
Yes. Well, and both are true, right? So we grieve on our own time. And since time doesn't heal in and of itself, then we have to take the steps to actually recover. And to your point, the man who started the grief recovery method 40-ish years ago, he'd been raised by an alcoholic, abusive father, had gone to Vietnam and saw his platoon get blown up. And then his 2-day-old son died. And he literally, and he was a seeker. He was trying desperately to recover and feel better. And so he's researching grief. And everything he found was people would say, let go and move on, but nobody who would tell you how. And he's like he literally found himself with a gun in his mouth, ready to end it all, and thought there's got to be a better way. And he created this step-by-step method, and so it's both. Yes, it's not that we're just going to get over it in a certain amount of prescribed time, and yet that we do need to know that action's required, and then we need to take those actions just like we would if we were sick physically. We go to the doctor, we address it. I break my bone, I handle it. A broken heart's no different, but we have not been taught to do that.
Absolutely.
You're exactly right.
So for everyone who's watching, this is an excellent time if you have questions, to reach out. We will have and answer all of your questions. We're going to try to go up to the top of the hour, but if we have questions that lead us beyond that, that is totally okay. We want to get to all questions today. That is why we are here. So in order to do that, scroll down to the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A. You can type out your questions there. You can even just share your experiences. And the best part is you can remain anonymous. I mean, this is why we're here today. We're here to help. So we do have a couple of questions, Anne, so let's go ahead and get started.
All right.
First one comes from Vicky. She asks, how do you approach moving a loved one to a home when they are not wanting to go? There's obviously some grief there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think part of it, not that this is going to be easy to do, right? It's, I don't have like a magic little checklist and then all of a sudden mom or dad's going to get on board and it's going to be easy. But I do think it's really important to remember that our parent is having an emotional experience, and what we may be giving them as the intellectual answers. Oh, well, it's going to be great because of X, Y, and Z, right? And that may not be answering their needs at all, and that we need to be able to listen to them. And when they say they're scared or they're worried, to be able to say like, well, yeah, I'm kind of scared too. Yeah, that makes sense. I can see why you feel that way. I feel kind of scared too. And, and I think these other things, give me some hope, and I know how social you are, and I know how easily you make friends, in a case like that, or how important it is to you to not have to do maintenance for the house. And again, it sort of sounds like intellectual answers, but we want to be really acknowledging of their emotional truth and meeting them where they are. And they may not do it on our time frame at all. The other thing is, I would say, don't avoid the conversation just because mom or dad is resistant. That's that other like, oh, well, she's got grief and I've got grief over it, and so we're just not even going to talk about it. Likewise, it doesn't need to be the conversation every time you're together. Maybe you make a point of having that, that conversation once a week or once every couple of weeks, that it's not just the relentless conversation.
And a follow-up here, and I think this will also help too. So there's a definite attachment here to the home. Vicki follows up and says it's been years since her husband died, and it's their dream home, and she's just not wanting to leave it right now. And then that's absolutely understandable. So what can she do to help her on that end, knowing that there's this significant attachment to the home?
Right. Well, I mean, and I can very much relate to that. My mother's in a similar situation. She lost her spouse. She's in a home that they renovated together, that she loves, tons of happy memories, with a lot of independence too, right? So there are lots of genuinely great things about being there. And then there are some downsides, and that there's a lot of, there's a lot of vacancy. There's a lot of loneliness because she's in that home by herself. One thing to know for sure, and I've done this with clients, is that the grief recovery method actually can be implemented with your home, right? And so one of the things that we end up doing is kind of taking an emotional tour. We did this, my sister's mother and I did this with the home that she sold of 42 years. Like going into those rooms and telling the stories of what happened in that space, the positive and the negative, and literally saying thank you and goodbye to those rooms. And it's, again, I don't even know conceptually why this works, but it does. I think it restores some power and choice to us, that we get to say goodbye, that this thing isn't just being taken away from us. Um, and so you do an emotional goodbye to her, and that includes the home, that includes the rooms, that includes the stuff. And then part of it's realizing and giving her the experience that what she had with her spouse, she gets to take with her. That emotional stuff is going to go with her into whatever home that she's living in. And that, I think there's that fear, like, oh my gosh, this relationship is attached to this home, but it's not. It's attached to the heart, and it gets to go with us wherever we go. And there are some very particular steps that can be taken with the grief recovery method to help facilitate and ease that process.
Yeah, and she follows up. So, Mom, it's time to go to the new place. So, I hope that Vicki, that this helps you. And I know somebody else has asked. Javon has asked. Can I have your contact information again, please? We will do that at
Yes.
the end of the webinar for sure before we sign off. And
Okay.
as Vicki states, she's also grieving. So, it's hard because she's grieving and then her mom's grieving. You have to see all that. And how do you give of yourself when you're in a similar situation?
Well, and that's exactly right. That's a wonderful point. So, like, mom's having conflicting feelings, Vicky's having conflicting feelings, probably the other siblings or other people in the family maybe having, and then all of those conflicting feelings are conflicting with each other. I do think one of the things that can be done is sort of creating like an emotional energy checklist where you can anticipate the things that mom is grieving, anticipate the things that you're grieving, and start to come up with ways that you can actually address those things and answer them, because again, it's not like it's a complete surprise. Some of this stuff we can anticipate, but Vicky's exactly right, she's grieving too.
Yeah, and she said she's
Yeah.
made a pros and cons list, as you could probably see there. So we can see the wheels are turning, and you're working through it, Vicki. And I think maybe a follow up, even if it's just a conversation with Anne after this, would maybe go a long way, and not only helping
Yes.
you, but helping your mom too to make that
Yes.
decision. So
Yes.
great question.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
And now Denise has something, oh, and her sister's there as well. So
Okay.
they're all taking this in and taking notes, I'm sure. Denise's question is a little similar, but the circumstances are different. And
Okay.
Denise wants to know, how do you support and encourage parents to move to assisted living when one has dementia and the other is grieving the loss of how things used to be?
So,
In grief, they are unable to move forward with the move.
yes. Yes. Well, I mean, it's just kind of more of the same, right? Like, we've got one spouse who's more compromised, and then the spouse that's grieving the loss of the spouse, and then thinking about moving, and then grieving the loss of the life that they knew, the home that they knew, the community that they knew. I mean, number one, for us as the family members to really respect and honor and appreciate that this is huge for our parents. And I mean, I think it's easy for us to sometimes to either just get frustrated or impatient or worried or scared and not really appreciate that this is a big move. Now, the other thing to know, though, is that they're going to have conflicting feelings. If they stay in the home, there's going to be conflicting feelings. If they move, there's going to be conflicting feelings. So the fact that there are conflicting feelings, that mom or dad feels uncertain about going, doesn't mean that they shouldn't go, right? And if they stay in that home and then, the other partner has a bad accident, or the partner who's caretaking the person, all of a sudden they've compromised their body, they fall down the stairs, they can't help that person. Like, then there's going to be a whole bunch more conflicting feelings, like, oh my gosh, why did I stay here? I shouldn't have done this. Or if the parents aren't feeling that, then the kids are going to be thinking, oh my God, why didn't I make them go? Right. So the fact that it's hard and the fact that there are conflicting feelings doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. Right. I mean, it's a little bit like a kid going, I mean, it's different, kid going off to college, because that's sort of what you're supposed to do. And mostly, hopefully, it feels happy. But even if the kid feels scared, parents are like, no, honey, it's time to go. This is what you got to do. Like, we don't let their fear stop them. We don't give into their fear. And I think it's the same thing with our parents moving, that we want to be really respectful. We want to be compassionate and supportive. And we don't need to like give into fear either. I mean, to help them move through their fear. And some of it's logistical too, right? It may be like, oh my God, I've got so much stuff. I can't possibly move because I've got all this stuff that I've spent the last 75 years accumulating and I don't know what to do with it. And so some of it may be, us as the kids saying, okay, you know what? I don't really want to go through all this stuff with you, but I'm going to help, or I'm going to find somebody who can help, like starting to sort of move through some of those obstacles and helping them do it instead of just saying like, okay, well, you should move. And, I wish you'd get on board.
Yeah, and I will say too that Arbor has quite a few communities that will allow one of your parents to be in the assisted living portion, and then the other to receive help in the memory care wing
Right.
of the community. So there are options out there, and yeah, the move is scary, but as you said, it's don't wait until something happens, and then
Happens.
you're
Right.
grieving something else on
Yeah,
top of everything else that you
absolutely.
started with. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, it's not that moving isn't going to be without conflicting feelings or be without
Sure.
grief, but staying, and watching mom or dad, like drive themselves into the ground trying to caretake the person or put the other person at risk, I mean, that has its own huge set of conflicting feelings.
Yeah. Well, we have another question, and then
Okay.
this is from Anonymous, and
Okay.
it goes back to a quote that you had said. So it says, "My mother is 79, is grieving the loss of her companion of 15 years, as he has gone to live with his son at age 88. Says mom has dementia and
Mm,
cannot live on her own. So we are looking at moving her into a senior living community." So in your definition, Anne, reaching
right.
out for something or someone that has always been there only to find that when we need them they are not
They're not
there
there.
with
Right.
dementia, that
Right.
creates a whole new set of problems. How can you help them recover?
I mean, it's obviously going to be different. There's a book that we have. So we've got the grief recovery handbook. Oh shucks, I don't have it here, but we can attach a link to that. There's also one that we've got called When Children Grieve, and I'm not trying to equate a senior with dementia to a child, but there's a way that we help children sort of do some of this recovery that's that's more basic, it's less complicated. And it seems like that might actually be a helpful approach with somebody with dementia. It's going to depend on how far down the road they are with dementia, and some of it may be if they're pretty far down and they can't do the more traditional recovery, like it's just us helping them actually move along and then really be there um, with whatever emotional truth they're having at any given moment, and then knowing again as the child that if we move them we have conflicting feelings, if we don't we have conflicting feelings, if we do A we have them, if we do B, like there's not some perfect option out there like, oh, I'm just going to choose C, no, I want C. It's not out there, and so when the good news is there's conflicting feelings no matter what, the bad news is there's conflicting feelings no matter what, and so then we just have to make the choice which subset of conflicting feelings is better, and it may be with mom, despite her broken heart and her partner who's not there, like that the best move is just getting her there, and it may be that I mean, I had one client who talked about doing that with his father, and they didn't really talk about it as a choice. They just said, hey, dad, we're going today. And he was like, "Uh, okay, we're going." So I don't know that that's the answer with everybody. Y'all in Arbor, certainly have more experience with that than I do. But that there's not a perfect option. The fact that we feel bad about it doesn't mean it's the wrong choice.
Yeah, and the follow up here is, she feels as if she's fine, but she doesn't remember he has left, and then cries 5 minutes later, thinking he's
Oh,
dead. And
oh,
this is the problem with dementia. So you're adding layers
yes,
upon layers upon layers,
yes,
and this is where I think maybe, as you said, you're looking at getting into a senior living community or assisted living. This is where maybe the professionals can come in and I think help and sort of
yes,
redirect
yes,
with activities that are appropriate
right,
to meet your mom where she is
right,
essentially.
right.
And
And it
so
definitely,
so we can definitely help with that. Go ahead, Ann.
right. Well, it sounds like she does have that need for community and connection, and to be there, it may be that she's really sad about him at any given moment. It may be sad that she's just lonely. And then if all of a sudden that there were some options, that might be better. And if it's not better in the community, like it wasn't better at home either.
Right.
Being there, alone.
Yeah. And I know we are coming up to the top of the hour. I do have one more thing I'd like to ask you,
Okay.
Anne, and I think this is something that you've touched on it a little bit here today, but I think this could help other people. You've talked about sort of some of the pillars of grief recovery program. What are some bridges or some ways to recovery? If somebody's looking for something tangible, because that's what helps them learn, what do you recommend?
Okay, tell me more. When you say something tangible,
Something that they can touch, whether it's a specific book or something that they can see or visualize
okay.
or have help understanding. What do you recommend?
All right. Well, for sure, the Grief Recovery Handbook. So I apologize, I don't have it sitting right here. It's a purple book. It's available on Amazon, right? The Grief Recovery Method.com is a website full of information, full of blogs, full of videos, comments that other people have made. Certainly, talking to me, going to my website, though I'm going to say it's a whole lot less thorough. I'm more in the habit of interacting with people directly, than getting a lot of content on the website. But there's tons of information out there. There are Facebook communities that you can join. Grief Share is a program that's available in a lot of churches. The downside to Grief Share is that I think it tends to be limited to the kind of loss that comes with a death. The grief recovery method applies to any kind of loss. So it can be death, it can be divorce, it can be pet loss, it can be, I lost my job, I lost my youth, I'm losing my home. There is a step-by-step method for recovering from this, and it works. And it's hard because it's emotional work, but it's just step by step, and all we have to do is just one step at a time. And then also reaching out to people. And being willing to talk, which can be a double-edged sword. You want to be careful because grief can be kind of self-absorbing. And so if all of a sudden you're calling your kids every single day and you're having the exact same conversation, or you're calling your best friend, you're having the exact same conversation every day. If you're having the same conversation repeatedly, it's a really good indicator that you need some grief recovery work. If you won't have the conversation at all, it's a really good sign that you need to do some grief recovery work, but reaching out, drawing, doing journals, certainly reading books. Richard Rohr's got a great book on falling upward, and the older you get, the more the grief accumulates, right? It's that hard time in life where your friends are just disappearing, either because they moved to go be closer to their kids, or they've died, or they're in the memory care unit. And so it's imperative that we start to learn to take care of ourselves in that way, because we're not escaping it.
Yeah, and we appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge with us. Now, going back to what Javon asked, if someone wants to contact you to talk one-on-one, how can they reach you?
Okay, so email Anne at grief, GRIEF 2TO relief, RELIEF.com, and at grieftorelief.com. Phone number 678-653-5513, 678-653-5513. And then my website's grieftorelief.com, and all the contact information's there. And I'd be honored and privileged. It's a huge privilege to do this walk with people, and it works.
Yeah,
and it works.
Marianne says, thank you so much for this. She's got some of the good verbiage to use when discussing the move with mother. So you're already helping people, Anne, and Vicki says thank you. So we really do appreciate, again, you sharing your knowledge with us. And again, for all of you who are watching today, you will receive an email follow-up with the link to this webinar. So
Okay.
you can watch it again. You can share it with your family members. It will also have Anne's information there in case you didn't have a pen or paper handy. So we have many ways that you can reach out and get in touch with Anne if you feel you need a little bit more help. But some
Yes.
great tips today, Anne. You were awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
excellent presentation. Great conversation from our viewers. As always, we appreciate you all watching Senior Living Live. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.